I just wonder, as you have been there to this area, how the normal people deal with the violence and all the trauma. I mean, the regular people who actually live there deal with all the situation in general.
Well, people have very different circumstances, right? There's there's Israelis and Palestinians. Then there's Palestinians in refugee camps and Palestinians, living in a more remote village. And they live in, if you're in the refugee camps, those are the areas. They're very densely populated, and they tend to be areas of the most conflict with the army. So that's where the most arrests and damage and destruction happens. How do people deal? There's all kinds of traumatic stress syndromes going on. It happens in Israel. It happens in Palestine. It's hard for people to deal. There's a whole schools of psychology that are trying to answer that question among Israelis and Palestinians. The Gaza Community Mental Health Project, they've published a lot on how the Palestinians deal with that. Do mothers who talk to their children about the violence and politicize it, does that help mitigate it? In Israel, same kinds of things. How do Israeli families deal with trauma and with violence? In a kind of shortcut answer, they've dealt with it by becoming more nationalistic, right? By closing ranks more and demonizing the other more. That's what happened. As the violence came up, we saw less willingness to negotiate, more willingness to elect a militant leader, whether it's Hamas or Bibi Netanyahu, right? So there's a complicated levels to that question. Okay.
Yes, my question to you is the very survival of the Jewishness of the Jewish state, and I'm talking about birth rates, I'm talking about the growth of the increase of non-Jewish people in Israel itself, and how that may change the whole character of the country in the next 25 years.
Yeah. So there's some facts that you're alluding to that not everybody might know. So like the demographic growth, right? And the fact that there are like 5 million Israelis and like 5 million Jewish Israelis and like 1 million and something Palestinian Israelis. And if it becomes a one state, it's no longer, it's a 5 million to 4 million situation. It's no longer a Jewish state. Look, as a Jew, I'll tell you, I don't want to live in a Christian state, right? I don't want to live in a Muslim state. I don't want to live in a Jewish state, right? I'm not all respect to religion, but I guess as an American, I'll say, I like our Constitution. Okay? There are parts of it, there are things I don't like, especially when it's referring to the slaves and stuff like that, right? But that we amended that stuff. And the parts about, separation of church and state. I don't think someone should have rights, right? I don't think someone should have work rights, like whether you get paid or not on certain wages or whether you have a right to sue your employer based on what religion you are, right? I think that we're developing an international standards of law. We have international criminal courts, right? We have international human rights, right? We can have personal status law that's based on religion. Who you marry, how you get divorced, that's personal status law. And that's a okay place for religion, for religious law. But when you're dealing with a mixed populations, human beings should have, in my opinion, the same rights regardless of what their beliefs, their religious beliefs are. Now that's me speaking as an American, right? I must say that for Israelis, right, most Israelis are secular, and they can't stand the Orthodox Israelis, okay? And the idea that there's going to be religious law in Israel is a constant struggle, right? And so, the Jewish character of the state that's a very, if we're not talking about religion, then we're talking about race. We're talking about a racist state, right? And that's where it's, because we're not talking about religion. We're talking about the idea that they're not, that is your mother Jewish? Okay. You know? And that was a big debate in Israel. Mi Yehudi, who is a Jew? Right? That's what you say in Hebrew. And that's politics. And it really happened when all the Russian Olim came. When 1 million Jews from Russia came after 1990. It was like, it's a huge amount, right? It was 4 million and now 5 million Jewish Israelis. 1 million of them are Russian speakers. Russian has displaced, Arabic in a way as the second language of Israelis. Things in supermarkets are written in Hebrew and Russian. Okay, they said, well, are they really Jews?
I just want to say, okay, we only got the room till 9:45. However, I'm going to, because I want to feed you, sir.
Okay.
Right? And I want to give you 25 more minutes of questions. However, please, if he answered the question, please let's not repeat the same questions. I just want to say that right now. Okay.
Thank you.
First off, I'd like to thank you for coming. This has been a fantastic presentation. With the United States has been a very vocal supporter of Israel. Why should Palestine just decide to stop using violence and basically use peaceful methods and come to the table and basically talk with the United States, who's trying to promote a two-state solution when we know that the United States has supported Israel for all these years? They've sold them weapons. It makes it very hard, I could see, for the Palestinian view, for why should we go negotiate with them when all these years they've supported Israel with the weapons and stuff. How does that equation just either work with the solution or go against it?
I'm not really clear. The question is that why should they support a peace?
Why should the Palestinians come and negotiate with the United States and the Israelis when over all these years the United States has been really supporting Israel? They've been selling them weapons. I feel like it makes it a very hard solution for the Palestinians to just say, all right, we're going to stop using weapons and come talk.
So the United States is not a neutral broker.
Not in my eyes, no.
That's right. And most Palestinians would say the same thing, that they're not a neutral broker, that the U.S. is not a neutral broker. And that might be why the negotiations of 1993 were in Oslo, because Norway was seen as a more neutral broker. There are many people, many states that have attempted to broker, that are involved in it. There's a Saudi plan. They've tried to do it. Egypt has had an important role in trying to broker issues with Hamas and Israel. There are other European states that have involved themselves. But I think that Palestinians would agree with you and say that we have a problem with America being the sole broker because America is so supportive of Israel over the years. That's correct. Okay.
I guess my question kind of goes off of that, but it's more of a question, and this is just because this is something I've studied really extensively.
It's like I promised to get him.
Making a state out of a treaty and establishing a state with that. So, I mean, do you feel like in your experience, do you feel that Israel really is a legitimate state? Because I mean, traditionally, the way that a state has been built has been through conflict. Like the empires that we were talking about, the empires would eventually collapse, and other empires would come along and then rebuild them, and then as the empires start to fade away, you had fragmentation and the creation of states, so that now this Israel country that we now have is a kind of a non-traditional state in the sense that it was constructed differently than how humans have constructed states in the past. So do you feel like, based on the history, do you think historically Israel really is a justified built state?
Okay. Israel is a settler colonial state. Okay? That's instead of the breakup of the empires, it's a settler colonial state. What else is a settler colonial
United
state?
States.
The United States, Australia, right? South Africa in that sense, Kenya before, when it was the white domination there. So the Americas in some ways are all settler colonial states. Some have huge indigenous populations, but these are all settler colonial states. I think that they were all racist settler colonial states, right? White supremacy ruled in Australia and in the Americas. A caste system, we could say, in Latin American countries. Israel is on that model, right? And in fact, Israel sort of said, or Zionists said 100 years ago, before there was a state, we got to do what they did, right? We got to go cut our own